Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then
Great.
they're just gonna come down and ask questions for themselves. I wanna limit mine, and then if they're a little shy, I'll come back and because I've got so many, I would love to ask you a ton of questions. So what I'd like, I think, to start with they're all lining up. They got the thing here. So
Great.
what's happening right here? Wow.
Oh, wow.
You might be here a while. I'll ask just one question, and that's just simply, why don't I have you introduce how this subject came to you, and if well, I've got a weird sort of message from Zoom here that I'm just going to get rid of, and I'm also going to do one more thing. I always forget to do this. I pin you, or else I record all of our students asking you questions, and I'd rather keep them anonymous. So you guys can sit down if you like. So just why don't you tell us about how you got to the subject? And I was curious if it was always Margaret and David who you were
Mhm.
focusing on, or if they sort of rose in the post process or during production.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be able to speak with you all about the film and for you all to be together watching it on a big screen. It's really what it was designed to do. So thanks for having me.
So that's
Um, the genesis for the project started with my sister, who has done a lot of work as a hospital chaplain. Um, it was really, she was going through her residency and telling me about it as her little brother, and I was pretty hooked. She shared with me some of the conversations she was having with patients, but also this like internal work that she was being asked to do in order to properly show up. Um, and that sort of got me started. I just started calling hospitals all around the United States. This was maybe April of 2020, trying to learn more about the field and trying to answer the question, is there a movie here? And if so, who would be brave enough to make it with me? And I eventually found my way to Mount Sinai and had a call with the director of their department, Amy Strano, and she just very quickly had enthusiasm for the project, and I think could sort of understand the value of showing people, sort of pulling the curtain back and showing people this work, and invited me to come for just a 2 week sort of scout where I could meet them, shoot some stuff, see if it was going to work, and where she could sort of, as a department, see what it was like to have a camera around. And that's when I met David, and through David, Mati, and the other residents. And from there, was invited to film the full year-long residency. And I filmed pretty equally with all of the residents in the program. Um, I was sort of watching them all grow and sort of come into their roles as chaplains in different ways, and I really wanted the film to sort of tell all of those stories. And it wasn't until the edit that we had to make some really hard choices to make it more specific, and Mati had um, just so much in her work and her story that needed that I wanted to focus on. And I felt that the more specific the film became, in a lot of ways, the more universal and profound it became. So it was a really tough sort of shift to do that, but it happened early on in the edit of the film.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
again, the beautiful film. We've got people. Not sure what just happened.
We got numbers.
Oh, there was this long line, and I looked up, and there's 3 people there. But they took a number. So okay, please come say your name and maybe what track you're in, or if you're what year you're in, whatever.
Yeah, can I just ask, are you all film students, or what sort of, what are you all studying? What are you all interested in?
Yeah, so here at UVU, there's a few tracks you can pick, like the post-production track, the directing track, writing
Okay.
track, etc. So most students in here are film students, I believe so. But
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I'm Jasmine. I am a post-production student, and I'm a senior. My question for you, what was the benefits and like disadvantages of being a director, editor, and cinematographer on this film?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. So one of the advantages, especially in the production side of things, was that it could be a very intimate, very simple process. It was just me with my camera filming with the cohort, and I think that enabled a type of trust that otherwise would have been very hard. Everyone who was agreeing to be in the film knew who they were dealing with. It was just me. And over the course of the full year, we became very close and very reliant on one another. And there wasn't a big sort of apparatus of people or equipment that was changing or sort of bigger than it needed to be. The challenge of that is that I had to wear a lot of hats and figure out how to shoot this um, without a team. I had a producer who was not in the hospital with me, but was like a really important sort of thought partner and support through the process. Um, in terms of the edit, I edited the film, but I worked really closely with a consulting editor, Mary Lampson, as well as Kellen, the producer of the film. And they would watch material and watch cuts, and sort of the three of us would really talk about what the film was becoming. And that made it possible for me to see things more clearly and more openly than my own experience of it. And I think typically it's very hard to edit things you shoot because you have your own sort of version of what happened because you were there, and it's not necessarily in the material, or what the audience sees might not be what you experienced, and an editor can sort of come in with fresh eyes. So I had a team of people that sort of helped um, break the material down into its sort of basic essence. And the advantage of editing is that the film really felt like it felt very personal and very much my own voice. There wasn't a process of sort of arriving at a lowest common denominator because we were compromising different sort of visions. It was something that I sort of imagined, that I shot and edited, and there was sort of a continuity of of care, really. Like I really cared about this film, and I was able to sort of hold that in each of these phases. So I really love to work that way. I think it's rare that films can sort of be held in all of these different stages by one person, and it's exhausting and very difficult to pull off, but I think it results in a, a type of filmmaking that I really aspire to keep doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Okay, just right here, right?
Yeah, hello.
You're good. Proceed. I just wanted to see your full lovely face. Yes, I'm short. I'm a dwarf, whatever. No, I'm a jokester, forgive me. But I'm Isaiah. I want to act, voice act, write, and possibly direct. I need to know what it all entails before I firmly say that. And plus, the school is full of directors, so I need to wait my time for a correct opening. Come on, I don't. That was a failed joke. My apologies. Janelle, you got it at least? Okay. So my question is, you mentioned in the last question that it was your like it was
like it was you, and like that kind of added on to my question, which was like I noticed throughout the whole documentary that like I was hooked on the story. It was fantastic, by the way, from me to you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. But my question is, did you ever think about how you would, like, even though it was at a slower pace, like, did you ever think about how you would, like, because again, I didn't mind, it was a great story, but did you ever think of how you would still, like, for the general audiences, like do certain things to keep their attention and not, like, I wasn't saying it's boring, you know, it was fantastic, but you catch my drift there?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I can say that the first many months of editing the material, I wanted to speed it up. Like I really wanted to compress scenes into being shorter, more condensed, more potent versions of themselves, and cut something that was quicker than the work itself was. And in doing that, the spirit of it just sort of fell out the bottom. And it took a lot of trust and a lot of work to let these scenes unfold as they were, and to just believe that leaving the material as close to its true form would hold people's attention and sort of hold water over the course of 90 minutes. And I think there's it's a pacing that is slow, but I think the material is dense enough that it hopefully works and hopefully sort of keeps your attention. There are some sort of things that we did in the beginning of the film to sort of show you as an audience what speed this would be moving at. Even just like the first shot of the film is maybe 4 minutes, an uninterrupted single take, which is sort of me as an editor saying, chill out. This is going to be a slightly different pace. Sit back and you know, settle into that way of being. And I think the lesson for me is just like the form matching the subject and not trying to turn it into something that it's not. Chaplaincy is not a fast-paced profession, and to make a film that was trying to be faster than the work felt inauthentic, and a lot of the sort of more profound feelings were lost.
So again, even though I think about what I mentioned, I think you did a fantastic job, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching.
Okay, hi.
Hello.
All right, my name is Anna. I'm currently working in the post-production side. So,
Cool.
I'm starting to get into more into the documentary side as well. But what I noticed basically, like from the prep work and from now, like this is like a very different kind of like documentary that I've ever seen of such. So my question is that what was like the reason for you to go for this kind of style of like documentaries in a way?
So how did it seem different to you?
Like, you know, like the traditional documentaries, like, you know, like the interviews and all that kind of stuff, how the person tells a story, but we're actually like showing you the real thing instead of like just having the person tell the story while there's like so many things going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's my sort of central goal with this film was to make the audience feel like they were just there in the room for these incredibly sacred, profound moments. And cutting to an interview or adding music or voiceover, it felt like it sort of ruined that experience. And my job was to create a sort of world in which having the camera present was possible, and not just possible, but where it felt invited and like you all as an audience weren't ever watching, but you were really almost participating in these moments. And if I could do that, leaving them as is was enough. So it's following a tradition of observational sort of verite filmmaking, which sort of believes in that, getting the camera to be there and act as a witness is sort of the goal. Adding to it or sort of building the film with all of these other elements wasn't something that I felt this story needed.
I appreciate that. I mean, the story was really great, as a religious person, like it really touched me a lot. So thank you for this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
Bailey. I'm in the directing track here.
Oh.
This was a really emotional film for me to watch, and I was curious, in early production of this film, what did you expect the emotional tone of this film to be? And
Mhm.
you got further into the production and got to know the characters more. How did that change, or did it change?
Yeah, really good question. It was important for me to sort of embark on this project more with a set of questions than like a vision. I think it's always sort of a red flag when I feel when I'm filming and I feel like I want this to happen and something else is happening. Like I need to let go of that sort of like preconceived need and just let life unfold and trust that that will always be more interesting than what I can imagine. And that related to the tone of the film. Like I knew that it was going to be profound and heavy and sort of have the aim of really just getting to the heart of what people experience when they're going through profound loss or changes in their lives. And that wasn't something that the feelings around being there in those moments is just not something I could anticipate. And with each scene, it was different in the way that people express themselves. And I think when we got to the edit, one of the sort of things that I wanted to get across was the weight that comes from accumulating these experiences over time, and really Mati and David's experience of burning out or just reaching a level of extreme exhaustion because of how it feels to witness so many of these types of moments over the course of a given week or year. So getting to a place where the audience could experience that without it being punishing or too difficult, wanting the film to feel beautiful and human and inviting while still going there and going to places that are really hard to go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erin. I am a sophomore here at UVU. I haven't chosen a track yet in the film program, but I'm looking forward to that soon. My question is, as you wore many hats, both in this film and then also in your film, Midnight Families, I'm sure, that was already challenging enough, but then with both of those projects, you're filming like these intimate experiences, and I feel like that'd be really, like, if I were in your shoes, that'd be really hard because, did you ever feel like you were being intrusive when you were filming these things? Like, what was that process like for you, people in these scenarios?
Yeah. One of the big sort of lessons in making this film for me was that all of the people who are participating, I wanted them to have their own reasons for being in the film. And when those conversations when I was able to sort of have those conversations with people and sort of discover a small group that really got something from being witnessed or being included in the film, the doors that opened were really special. Sort of a long way of saying, if there was any tension or any feeling of not being invited, the film sort of fell apart. There wasn't a way to sort of cheat it or sneak my way in there and get a moment that worked for me but didn't work for the patient. And the moments where the patients were truly comfortable and truly willing, the film started to take off and become something really special. So I feel really firmly that like ethical questions and questions of consent, of how a story is sort of being conceived morally, it's not an afterthought. It's something that is actually woven in to the sort of creative potential of the storytelling itself.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What up? I'm
Okay,
tall. Sorry.
There's this long string of people the exact same height.
Hello. My name's Michelle. Nice to meet you. Love the film. 10 out of 10. Nice work. You got my sample. I got kind of a weird question for you. And my question is, do you have a mantra?
I don't have a mantra that I sort of rely on regularly. I have different sort of moments, different tools that I use, I think, to sort of like center myself. I meditate every morning, for example. I find that like even brief moments of sort of deep breathing can sort of like really relax me. But when you say mantra, it's sort of like a single phrase that I return to. Yeah, I don't. Chill out would be a good one.
Well,
What about you? Do you have one?
I don't have a specific one, but I've been asking some of my mentors in the industry right now, and I've been very fascinated by their answers that they've given me.
Mhm.
And one that I've liked recently is be calm, be concise, and be kind.
Mhm.
Anyways,
Yeah,
for sharing your tips. Love the film.
yeah, cool. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Brock, and I am going into directing. And I had a question about your shooting methods.
Yeah.
There's a few scenes where you're covering all the chaplains like sitting around the table, and the way that you shoot it makes it look like you're covering it in a way that filmmakers shoot and cover narrative films. There's so many different camera setups. I was wondering, in the documentary setting, how did you have all that time to run around and say like, okay, I'm gonna get down, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the film was just single camera. And what made that possible was that a lot of these, well, just sort of basic coverage and sort of trying to be in the right place at the right time. But these scenes were also unfolding over sometimes very long periods of time. So like whenever they would meet around that table, it was a 3-hour session. And I would be editing it down into like a 5-minute scene. And so in those 3 hours, I could get the coverage that I needed. And it did take a lot of practice. And there was a concern that I had in the beginning was like, can I cover these 5-person conversations with just a single camera? And I knew that if I brought in another camera, it would feel too intrusive. So I just needed to sort of work it out. But same with all of the visits with patients, it's all single camera and moving at the right times, really feeling the room, really getting a sense of where I can be, where I can't be, and just getting better and better at getting the right coverage.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Nicole and I have a long running standing joke.
Hello.
My name is Nicole, and I'm in the post-production track here. And I had a question about like how you go about your vision. I know like a couple questions ago, you said you don't go in with an intention of making a story out of something, but I was wondering, like, do you get your ideas from like meeting someone and then moving forward with that? Like, does a light bulb kind of go off in your head? And you just kind of run with it and start from the ground up?
Yeah, and So there's definitely light bulb moments where you sort of stumble across something and it's more like a deep curiosity awakens in me, or like a sense of I want to go spend time with those people or in that place. And I can often sort of see the film, like I can see a sort of dream version of it, but there's all these gaps and possibilities of what it could be and what the sort of world will sort of hand me once I actually show up. And a big challenge again of the process is just like staying very like having conviction and having a sense of what's possible, but also keeping an open mind and not closing doors. And in terms of where my ideas come from, I spend a lot of time reading and looking, exploring, and all of that time has not yet led to any actual film. All of the ideas that I've actually worked on have come from far more personal places, things that I've actually like personally bumped into, either walking on the street like Midnight Family or through my sister. But I think it's a process of, again, like keeping my eyes and ears peeled for things that sound like they could be a movie. And when I sort of have that initial spark, looking further and not just letting it pass, holding on to it enough to sort of see if it's something I would want to pursue more or not. And that's sort of like almost a way of being. Like I'm always thinking and looking for new projects.
That's awesome. I admire that. Just keeping it open.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Zach. I'm in the post-production track, and I was just wondering, with all the interviews that were shown, or all the patients that were shown, if they were shown chronologically, specifically the last one, if it was.
Yeah, it's not exactly chronological, but it's pretty close. The film as a whole, there was not a ton of like moving things around in terms of the chronology. I think for example, the opening scene was with a patient that we visited many times together and was not like the first patient that I saw with Mati, but the older Jewish woman, Chaya, was the first like full visit that I filmed with Mati. And then the last visit, I don't think was the last thing I filmed with Mati, but it was in the last few weeks. So roughly speaking, the chronology is sort of how things unfolded with a few sort of pieces moving around. As an editor, I didn't feel like it needed to be chronological. I wanted to order things in a way that gave the audience the experience of what it was like being there. And that doesn't necessarily happen if things are in order or not in order. But when we got to the end of the edit, it sort of happened to be the case that the truest version of the film kept things pretty kind of chronological.
Sweet. I really appreciate your film, and I was bawling my eyes out. So
Thanks.
Who's next?
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Loved the project. So many people ask questions that I had deep curiosities about, and so I feel like you've really gone over a lot of the thoughts that I had, and so I'm struggling to know exactly what question I should ask now, but it's like I would love to sit in a room with you and really like get deeper into those things, because as someone that's like looking into this as a potential career,
Mm-hmm.
I understand like what will this lifestyle look like? You know, there's so many feelings of inadequacy maybe that might pop up of the challenges that you have to surmount. And I would love to ask you 1,000 questions, but if I can just narrow it down to one, I guess I would go back to, I have a great critiquing eye, and all the questions that people brought up, I was already asked myself. It's just in this whole process, approaching this being a personal thing that you had an attachment to. This was something that your sister had experience with, and so you had a direct line to thinking. When getting into this, was there any part of this process, because it was a whole year of you pursuing this?
Yeah, almost 4 at this point, but a year just of filming. Yeah.
Yeah. So when pursuing this as a director, and did you ever have like feelings of there's a lot riding on this, or just like what form of inadequacies did you maybe encounter, or just
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, totally. I mean, constantly doubting every layer. And that being motivating in some ways of sort of like, okay, if I'm sort of doubting this, let's look at it more closely, these sort of different pieces, and see what's there. But the real leap of faith is like deciding that this is a topic that I want to spend 3 or 4 years of my life working on. And then from there, feeling an enormous responsibility to do it justice, and asking a lot of the people in the film to open up, to be vulnerable, to invite me into these incredibly intense moments, and needing to be a good enough filmmaker to hold them, and to include them in a film that communicated those feelings, and doing it ethically. And there's just so many layers of weight that I felt of needing to do it well, and not always being sure if that was going to happen. And then moments where I felt really confident and really capable and had sort of breakthroughs, and that was what sort of kept me going. And I think as long as there's sort of a forward momentum, or a sense of progress, or a sort of sense of one thing leading to the next, those doubts can sort of stay in the background. And then if there are moments of real stagnation or stuckness, they sort of grow, and you sort of look at them closely, and sort of, one by one, try and solve the problems. But yeah, it's making a film is a very daunting mental feat of sort of sticking your neck out for something that I think is interesting, and needing to trust that other people will also find it interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can, just for curiosity's sake, a simple question I had was, what kind of questions were people asking you when they were looking for direction, since you were there filming?
When they were looking
kind of
for
like
direction.
fly on the wall, that was the feeling, but what was the experience of giving direction when people were looking for it, if anyone did ask?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, that wasn't something that was, there was never really a moment where I was directing the people on camera. It was a process of being as quiet and as non-intrusive as possible, and letting these conversations unfold as they would were I not there. I think the directing was more a matter of having conversations with people before we started filming and after we filmed, and creating a real sense of trust that enabled the camera to be present, more than sort of dictating what would unfold when it was present.
Well, it was amazing what you were able to capture, so thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
So my name's Riley. I'm sort of on the post-production side of things as well, but I had a question that sort of related to the last one a little bit, but obviously filming these residencies, their job is very stressful. They have a lot going on. You could see that obviously in the film that there was a lot of stress and a lot of emotion there. Do you feel like as you were filming, you kind of took on some of that stress and emotion for yourself? And how did you deal with that very, those high tense situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really went through the residency. I was there for the majority of it and feel I learned an enormous amount about chaplaincy sort of just by being there. And part of that was embodying the feelings that are at the heart of the film. I really feel like I needed to go there personally and feel those things in order to know how to communicate them to an audience. And that's one of the sort of like most beautiful and terrifying parts of my work is like needing to go all the way or wanting to go all the way to really feel like I've done a story justice. And for this film, that was a lot of really, really difficult experiences and feelings that weighed on me in a compounding way for a really long time and still are things that I'm navigating and figuring out where to put, how to deal with. Again, like I have certain like tools and things that I've learned work, like meditation, like taking breaks and taking time where I'm really turning off my filmmaker brain and able to just think about other things. Yeah, exercise, moving slowly, therapy, you know, a handful of things that several of which I sort of learned through the making of this film, that like by putting myself in such difficult situations, I sort of needed to find tools, and those are things that I think I'll carry with me for forever. So it was sort of a silver lining of it all.
Awesome. Thank you.
And not every difficult thing has a solution. Like part of it was just needing to feel really heavy and knowing that that was okay, and that it didn't need to be solved for or changed, but it just needed to be sort of experienced, and that's a lot of what chaplains are experts at. So I was in good company.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mason. I'm in the cinematography track, and I was just wondering, in both this movie and Midnight Family, one thing that really stood out to me was how it was lit. I was wondering, did you augment the light with your own gear at all, or did you rely mostly on natural light?
Entirely natural light. That said, well, available light, I guess is a better word. You know, all of the hospital rooms sort of had the same lighting setup, and there was a bit of flexibility in terms of where the blinds would sit or sort of which lights were on and which were off. Several rooms had dimmers, so I could sort of like dim the light a little bit, and I got a lot of experience in just like the same environments day in and day out over the course of months. And that helped me find sort of the spots that worked best, but there was not any added light. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, it looks great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think we just have a couple more. Are you holding up all right?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, a couple more sounds good.
Up through 16, this is 14 right here, so 15 and 16.
Oh, there's 4 more.
Hey Luke, my name is McKay. I'm in the post track. I just want to say it's great. My dad's a hospice chaplain. He's a pretty soft guy, so that was really great. Helped me really see into his life a little bit.
Yeah, cool.
You've talked about, you know, over this 4 years now that you've been working on it, how it's been daunting, how you've overcome certain aspects. you know, in my minimal experience on set as a director or cinematographer, when things don't start going the way I planned, you know, how do you, especially with something that's been over so long, how do you kind of, as a filmmaker, overcome those setbacks, or I guess address them to make it work out the way that you hope?
The first thing that comes to mind is not sort of the definitive answer to your question, which I don't have, is like just thinking about these projects as really long-term journeys. It's like, and I think the gift of time is that if something doesn't go well, there's always time to sort of redirect or sort of change course and sort of take what you've learned and apply it to sort of making the next decision with more knowledge. I think with a film like this, it's more failure than it is success. Like I shot 500 or 600 hours and the film's 90 minutes. And most of that material is me trying something that didn't work. And trying the next thing, knowing what didn't just work. And accumulating that over the course of a year and sort of slowly building something. So I really like to be in sort of an environment where I'm allowed to just try and fail and sort of throw stuff against the wall over and over again. When I feel like it needs to be right quickly, that's when I get stressed and things feel more difficult.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Dylan. My aspirations are in directing.
Cool.
But my question for you is going through this 4-year experience and then going into the filming part of it, like what helped you decide what to film and what not to film? Because I imagine that would be kind of a hard.
Yeah, so it was about 150 shoot days. And on each day, I really tried to film as little as possible. It ended up, I guess, being, yeah, roughly a handful of hours each day. Trying to be sort of specific and careful, but so much of this film was like building trust on camera. And so there were a lot of things that I shot where I knew after a few minutes that it wasn't going to be in the film, but that having the experience of filming together was what we needed to do to sort of get to the next step. With this project, it was more a matter of thinking about sort of the ethics and the morality of it as sort of the first step. Like, is this something that I'm invited to film? And then from there, giving it a shot, sort of seeing, and setting up pretty firm boundaries or rules for the project from the beginning. Like I wasn't particularly interested in filming very much outside of the hospital. I wasn't interested in filming stuff with chaplains who weren't the 4 residents. Like I had limits on what was within the scope of the film and what was going to be outside of the scope of the film. And a lot of those limits were discovered by trying to go home and film around New York City, or trying to film with other people in the department for a few hours or for a day, and realizing that it wasn't deepening the story, but was sort of just spreading me more thinly than I wanted to be.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we have 3 more people, Luke.
Okay.
Hi, Luke. It's a pleasure. My name is Camden Snow. I'm an aspiring director as well. I wanted to kind of hopefully get you to expand a little bit on the process of obtaining access for a lot of these moments in the film. I'm currently in a documentary producing and pitching class, just learning the fundamentals about a lot of the producing aspects of documentary filmmaking. And we're right in the thick of just learning a lot about just like access, obtaining access, and how to
hold yourself in conversations with people and obtaining like that trust and whatnot. And you spoke a lot about this. You've thrown in little tidbits there about setting clear boundaries and building that trust as a small crew, narrowing scope, and you were cold calling hospitals. I'd love if you just touch on any aspect that you feel inspired to about obtaining access in a film like this, because this is very
Yeah.
based, and I would love to learn more about that as I'm trying to navigate figuring out access for my own projects.
I think every story sort of asks for a different approach to this question, but it is sort of, I would say, the centerpiece of my work is like figuring out how to build enough trust to make certain things possible that seem impossible. One sort of reframe with this film that I relied on was, instead of asking people to film them, I sort of offered the project as something that was possible. So sort of walking into a patient's room and saying, we're making this documentary about spiritual care. If you have any interest in your visit with the chaplain being documented, that's something that can happen. And coming up with similar ways to make people feel more of a collaborator than a subject. Everybody who appeared in the film had the right to take their material back or remove themselves from the film at any time, which was something that felt necessary given the stakes and just the emotional intensity. It's not something that I would do with every film, but with this one, it opened doors and created sort of a power balance that really let the film go places I don't think it otherwise would have been able to go. And part of that was going back to people and showing them the cut and thinking about consent and the invitation to film, not just as sort of a one-time thing, but something that needed to happen over the course of many years, and not thinking about that just as something that I owe the people in the film, but as something that actually gets me what is a much deeper version of material than I otherwise would have been able to get. And yeah, it helped to often have Mati be the one to sort of introduce the project or sort of mention the film to people before I was even there, sort of like thinking about ways that the project could arrive that didn't feel daunting, didn't feel overbearing, not putting people on the spot, and just having the time and space to sort of answer questions and be a curious person. I don't know. But yeah, I think that the two big learnings, I think, are if the people that you're filming can have time to discover their own reasons for being in it, doors will really open. And the sort of ethics or doing the right thing isn't an afterthought, but something that's sort of woven into the starting point of the film, then sort of really cool things can happen too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Hello. Camera. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Karina Pena, and I'm a writer director, and I'm a senior here, so I'm graduating soon. And you've been talking a lot about building trust and consent with your subjects in the film. I think I have a specific question about a scene, and that scene is when Mati and I forgot his name, the supervisor's name.
David.
Yes, where they have that big argument about, that, she has two options and like that whole thing. So I guess I was just really curious about where your placement was while all that was happening, and how, if that was awkward, or how you got, I don't know, I guess how that scene went down, and how you got in there in the first place. Yeah, I'm just really curious about how that went.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? You sort of cut out there for a second, but
Yeah,
I got your
can
question.
hear
Yeah.
my question. Like,
Yeah, so again, like that was a scene that, well, it unfolded very quickly and very chaotically, but beforehand, I asked Mati if she was okay with me being there, and then I asked David if he was okay with me being there, and they both said yes. This was after months of being there for their sort of interactions, so it was sort of routine in some ways. Oftentimes, surprising moments like that are filmable when they're sort of like within a context where filming is sort of a routine, and not something that's sort of like chasing the surprising moment only when it's happening. And then showing the film to Mati and David afterwards, and having them both separately give me the okay for it to stay in the film. And that was after a series of really long conversations with both of them about why it was important to sort of show this side of the work, and not wanting either of them to feel like that was something that was in the film because I needed it, but because they were brave enough to sort of show the full, raw, messy part of things.
cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And last but not least, it's
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Jack, and I am hoping to go into the cinematography track here.
Cool.
And I was just curious, you mentioned earlier that you, in I guess the lead up to this project, you like met with all the chaplains and stuff at the hospital. And I was just curious how you ended up settling on Mati as like your main subject, and at what point in the process did you decide that?
Yeah, so Mati was somebody that once I sort of selected Mount Sinai as the place to make the film, I spent about a day with each person in the department, and there's maybe like 20 staff chaplains. And towards the end of that process, I spent a day with the residents, and this was 4 residents. Mati was one of them. And she was somebody that really intrigued me from the first day, but it wasn't clear that she was interested in being in the movie for months. And I was filming with the cohort, sort of equally pursuing all of the residents for the full year, and slowly building trust with Mati and sort of getting enough openness from her to sort of film. But even when I got to the edit, I was hoping that the film was going to tell all 4 stories. But quickly started to see a sort of richness in the material of Mati that I decided to focus the film on. So again, it was sort of knowing early on that she was somebody that I was really intrigued by, but needing to sort of keep my options open for sort of a longer period of time to sort of see how it all unfolded. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
So Luke, it has been a pleasure. I do want to ask one last question, and that is, it's currently not available. What does the distribution future look like for the film?
Yeah, we're hoping the film will be streaming this summer, and should have some news on that shortly. And in the meantime, are doing as many of these sort of educational, sort of in-person or sort of theatrical events as possible. So if any of you know of others who might like to do something like this, please spread the word. It's a film that I think is best seen with other people. So glad we could do this.
Yeah, it's nice to have it like in a focused place, right? It would be the
Yeah.
wrong environment to be watching it on your phone while you're eating a bowl of cereal.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it was such a pleasure. It's such an honor to have you. The film is so beautiful.
thank you.
Our students also watched your other films, or a lot of them did, in preparation for it, and it's been a pleasure to do a deep dive into your beautiful work. So,
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
round of applause, guys. Thank
Great. Take care, everyone.
you. Have a great night.
You too.